You're standing at the edge of everything you've ever wanted and everything you've ever feared. That's the battlefield. That's the moment the world separates the dreamers from the doers, the hopeful from the hungry, the passive from the powerful. And here's the truth. Success isn't interested in how you feel. It doesn't knock politely. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't wait for your fear to subside or your confidence to rise. Success is motion. Success is decision. Success is war. And most people are losing that war because they're waiting for the perfect moment, the right mindset, the right energy, the right sign from the sky. But that moment never comes. Because readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. Edison didn't wait to feel brilliant. He didn't ask the world to applaud his early failures. 10,000 times he stumbled in the dark, not because he was ready, but because he was willing. Willing to move while others paused. Willing to begin without knowing how it would end. You have been lied to by a culture obsessed with comfort. A world that says, take your time. While time is stealing every breath you hesitate. They've told you to wait until you're sure. Wait until it's safe. Wait until it's convenient. But success rewards those who move while uncertain, who act while afraid, who build while the winds of doubt are howling. Abraham Lincoln didn't wait to feel like a giant before he stepped into history's fire. He rose from failure after failure, broken and bloodied, mocked and doubted, but he stood, not because he was ready, but because the cause was bigger than his comfort. And that's what you must understand. The life you're chasing is not waiting for your permission. Your dreams are on a clock, and while you're stalling, someone else is starting. While you're preparing, someone else is producing. While you're doubting yourself, someone else is daring to build without certainty. Readiness is a myth. If Carnegie had waited to feel like a titan before building his empire, we'd never know his name. If Disney had waited until he had the money, the influence, the support, we'd never have the magic. They didn't wait. They moved. They dared. They acted as if. Because action is the birthplace of clarity. And clarity is the oxygen of progress. So don't you dare look at your fear and call it wisdom. Don't you dare dress hesitation in the robes of strategy. You already know what needs to be done. You already hear the whisper of destiny pulling you forward. You've just been trained to ignore it. Trained to sit, to shrink, to overthink and underact. And that training is your enemy. You weren't born to hesitate. You weren't built for the sidelines. Inside you is the fire of those who came before, those who built nations, invented light, led revolutions, and carved their names into the stone of history. They didn't wait. They walked into the storm, not because they felt brave, but because they refused to bow to fear. That's where you must live now, in the space between doubt and decision. That brutal, sacred space where nothing is guaranteed except growth. Where failure is the fee and greatness is the reward. Where you build before you believe. Where you act before you understand. Where you leap not because you feel ready, but because you refuse to remain small. And hear me clearly, you will be afraid. That's not a defect, it's a signal. Fear means you're near something that matters. Fear means you're touching the edge of your calling. So don't wait for fear to fade. Walk through it. You think clarity will come if you sit and wait long enough. No, clarity comes from movement, from motion, from bold, decisive steps into the fog. The staircase won't appear all at once. You climb one invisible step at a time. Do you think the Wright brothers felt ready to defy gravity? They didn't wait for a blueprint. They didn't wait for applause. They built with scraps, with grit, with relentless vision. Because success isn't handed to the prepared, it's earned by the courageous. The future does not belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most willing, willing to be seen trying, willing to bleed for their cause, willing to be misunderstood, doubted, laughed at, and still move forward. The moment you decide to stop waiting, the moment you stop asking permission, the moment you stand up, trembling and unsure, and say, I'm doing this anyway, that's the moment the world begins to shift. Because power belongs to the man or woman who acts. who chooses, who builds, not the one who studies it to death, not the one who prays for the green light, but the one who walks forward even when every voice inside is screaming, "You're not ready." There is a moment in every life when you must stop rehearsing and start living, when you must stop planning the path and begin walking it, because the longer you stand still, the louder doubt becomes. And doubt is a liar dressed in logic. It will give you every reason to shrink, every excuse to delay, every rational explanation for why now is not the time. But the clock does not care about your excuses, and life does not pause for the unprepared. The fire you're waiting to feel, it comes after the action, not before. The momentum, the confidence, the energy you crave, they are not prerequisites. They are products. You move, then you feel alive. You build, then belief is born. You dare, and only then does courage enter the room. And that's the truth. Most never learn courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to rise in spite of it. Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't afraid when he stood before crowds that could destroy him with a word? Do you think Rosa Parks didn't feel her heart race when she refused to move to the back of that bus? Fear was present, but it didn't win, because they didn't wait to feel safe. They acted like they were called, and that call was louder than comfort. That's what separates history makers from spectators. They understand that if you wait for comfort, you'll never taste greatness. If you wait for certainty, you'll never rise beyond mediocrity. You must become the kind of person who acts anyway. The battlefield of life doesn't reward the timid. It rewards the bold, the consistent, the self-led, the ones who build discipline into their blood and keep swinging even when they don't see results, because they know. Faith without action is fantasy. Desire without discipline is delusion. Do not confuse inspiration for transformation. This world is full of people who are inspired but never changed. People who feel the fire but never step into it. People who talk about goals, dreams, missions, but when the weight of action appears, they collapse under the pressure. Not you, not anymore. You're done waiting, done hesitating, done asking the world for permission to be powerful. The greats of every generation were not superhuman. They simply understood that motion creates mastery. They learned to move even when they didn't feel worthy, even when the odds said no, even when their minds screamed not yet. Ford didn't wait for approval before reimagining transportation. He didn't ask if it had been done before. He decided, then he acted, and the world changed because of it. That's the cycle. Decide. Act, refine, repeat. Not decide, doubt, delay, distract. Quit, and when it gets hard, and it will, you push deeper. You tap into something that's been sleeping inside of you far too long. That ancient force, that primal resolve, that unshakable knowing that you were built for more. Because every excuse you've ever used is crumbling. Time, you're wasting it. Resources, you can build with scraps. Support, you don't need cheerleaders, you need conviction. Conviction will build bridges where fear builds walls. Conviction will get you up when comfort whispers, stay. Conviction is the fuel that will drive you through the storms, the setbacks, the silence and the solitude. And yes, there will be solitude, because not everyone will understand this version of you. Not everyone will applaud you stepping into your calling. Some will resent it. Some will doubt it. Some will try to talk you out of it. Let them, because their opinions don't build your life. Their approval doesn't pay the price for your purpose, and their doubt has nothing to do with your destiny. The world isn't waiting for another echo. It's waiting for a voice, a roar, a leader, someone bold enough to be seen starting, messy, imperfect, in progress, someone relentless enough to build while bleeding, to plant while others laugh, to rise again and again and again until rising is the only thing they know. And when you move like that, when your identity becomes forged in action and your mind is trained in forward momentum, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you become unwilling to retreat. You have to understand the world bends not to the hesitant, but to the relentless, to those who push forward when others pull back, to those who build when the bricks are crumbling, who lead when no one is watching, who grind when the spotlight is off, because that's where real power is forged, not in moments of applause, but in the silence, in the stillness, In the dark hours when it's just you, your doubt, and your decision, your future is formed in the furnace of your current discipline, and most people are too busy searching for shortcuts to realize that. They think they'll find a way around the fire, but the fire is the way. You do not become who you're meant to be by avoiding struggle. You become it by embracing it, walking straight into the pressure and transforming under its weight. Every man who ever built a legacy knew this. That comfort is the cage. That hesitation is the enemy. That success demands blood before brilliance. And if you aren't willing to sweat in obscurity, you'll never shine in legacy. Look at every great monument on this earth, from the pyramids of Egypt to the skyline of Manhattan. They weren't built in a weekend. They weren't crafted by those who felt ready. They were built brick by men and women who decided, I'm not leaving this world ordinary. That decision, that internal vow, that's the beginning of everything. It's when you stop living like life is happening to you and start living like life is happening through you. When you stop watching others build and start picking up your own tools regardless of how heavy they feel. There is no room in greatness for the mentality of someday. Someday is the graveyard where dreams go to rot, where potential decays, where belief dies a slow, quiet death. But you are not someday. You are now. Now is all you have. Now is where you draw the line. Now is where you rise or remain. Now is when you either become the architect of your life or a prisoner in someone else's blueprint. And don't you dare say it's too late. It's not. You are still breathing. Your heart still beats. Your mind still dreams. That means you still have time, but you won't always. The hourglass doesn't ask if you're ready. It flips and the sand begins to fall. That's it. You don't get control when the timer runs out, but you do control what you do before it does. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped waiting? What would happen if you acted like you were already the person you're trying to become? What would your days look like if you moved without apology, without delay, without doubt gnawing at your heels? Everything would change, not because the world would suddenly roll out the red carpet, but because you would be different. You would no longer be negotiating with your greatness. You'd be commanding it, not someday, not after you read another book, not after you feel ready. Now, because success, real success, is not about what you feel. It's about what you do anyway when your knees shake, when your throat tightens, when the pressure threatens to crush your spirit. That's the test. And every day, life is watching how you respond. It's watching to see if you'll cower or conquer. And the response doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real, raw, unfiltered, relentless. Don't wait until the lights are on to shine. Shine in the dark, shine in the struggle, shine when no one sees the hours, the effort, the pain. Because the world always sees the results, but only you will know what it took to get there. And that, my friend, is where the power lies. There's a voice in your head that whispers, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if they laugh? But there's another voice too smaller, quieter, buried beneath layers of doubt and decades of fear, and it says, what if I win? What if you rise? What if this time you don't break? What if this moment, the one that feels too big, too overwhelming, too soon, is actually the moment everything changes? You were never meant to live at half strength. You were not built for mediocrity. Your wiring, your bones, your spirit, they were crafted for greatness, forged to rise, designed to create impact that echoes beyond your years. But that doesn't happen through waiting. That doesn't happen by watching others climb while you rehearse your excuses. The reward is in the risk, and risk never waits for you to feel comfortable. It shows up when you're exposed. It shows up when the ground beneath you shakes and the outcome is unclear, and it dares you to leap anyway. You want certainty. That's the price of an average life. But you want a legendary life. You pay in courage. You pay in commitment. You pay in the refusal to let hesitation become your habit. That's the real war, not with the world, but with the weakness in your own mind. The voice that says, not today. The instinct to shrink. The pattern of retreat. And every time you move forward anyway, you kill that weakness. You bury it beneath sweat and motion and action, because every act of courage becomes a brick in the foundation of your greatness. Every moment you defy fear becomes a sentence in your story, and every bold move you make today echoes into eternity. Think about that. The ripple of your action doesn't end when the task is done. It continues, it spreads, your children feel it, your community sees it. The world gets just a little brighter because one person you chose not to wait. And when they say, you've changed, you look them in the eye and say, damn right I have. Because you're no longer here to be acceptable, you're here to be exceptional. Lincoln didn't rise through ease. He rose through turmoil, through loss, through depression, through public failure, but he kept rising because he believed in something deeper than himself. He believed in destiny. Do you believe that your life has weight, that your voice carries power, that your hands were meant to build something real, something enduring, something bigger than your own comfort? Because until you believe it, you'll keep playing small. You'll keep waiting for the moment to feel right. But that moment isn't on a clock. It's inside you, and the second you decide, really decide, everything begins to change. The people who move the world don't wait for signs. They become the signal. They move first. They speak first. They dare first, and the world catches up. And yes, you will be alone at first, because not everyone can stomach the sight of someone rising. Not everyone has the stomach to watch you do what they're afraid to even try. But that's not your burden, that's their battle. Yours is to lead, to rise, to move forward like your soul is on fire, because it is. You don't need a map, you need motion. You don't need a cheerleader, you need a decision. You don't need certainty, you need courage. So take the step, then the next, then the one after that. And before long, you'll look back and realize that the gap between who you were and who you are was built entirely on what you did when you didn't feel ready. This is where everything shifts, not out there but in you, because no one is coming to hand you the life you dream about. No mentor, no friend, no miracle. The door to your future doesn't open with a key. It opens with your decision to kick it in, and you must do it now, not next month. Not when the schedule clears, not when the nerves go away. Now, while your heart is racing, while the stakes are high, while your knees are still shaking, because that's when it counts, not when you're confident, not when you've already won. It counts most when everything inside of you wants to run and you move forward anyway. That is the muscle of greatness, the ability to move through discomfort, through uncertainty, through fear without blinking. Because you've trained yourself not to flinch at resistance, but to rise in the presence of it. That's how legacies are written. That's how empires are built, not through perfect planning, but through persistent action in the face of pressure. Disney was rejected over 300 times before anyone believed in his vision. They told him it wouldn't work. They said it was unrealistic, but he didn't wait for belief, he carried his own. And because of that, the world now walks through his dreams. So I ask you, what's your disnil? And what's the vision you keep shelving because you're waiting for the stars to align? What dream are you dragging behind excuses? What empire are you letting rot because fear keeps winning the argument? Enough. Burn the script you've been living from, the one that says, play it safe. Tear up the narrative that says, you're not enough yet. You don't need more time, you need more truth. The truth is this: success doesn't come to the most talented, it doesn't come to the lucky, it comes to one who outlasts, outworks, and believes everyone else, the one who gets knocked down, spat on, forgotten, and still gets up with fire in their chest. And if you want to become that kind of person, there's only one path: show up when it's hard, when it's ugly, when no one claps, when no one sees it. When the only one cheering is that quiet inner voice whispering, keep going. You show up until showing up is who you are, until discipline is your second skin, until the version of you who hesitated, doubted, and delayed is a distant memory, because there's a deeper power inside you. One that hasn't been fully unleashed. You've glimpsed it in flashes, moments of strength, bursts of courage, but you've yet to live in it, breathe in it, own it every single day. That power is not waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be claimed, and the only way you claim it is by taking the step before you feel ready. You earn your future by what you do in the present, and every time you delay, you train your mind to doubt. But every time you move, no matter how small, you train your identity to rise. So rise, stand tall in your own story. Refuse to be a chapter in someone else's. This is your moment to rewrite the whole damn book, not with words, but with action. You've come too far to stop now. You've sacrificed too much to question if you're worthy. You've tasted the hunger. Now it's time to devour the outcome. This isn't just about motivation. This is about identity. This is about who you are becoming when no one's watching. This is about the choices that echo through your bloodline. This is about the standard you set not just for you, but for every soul that follows after. You don't just rise for yourself. You rise for the ones who couldn't, for the ones who never believed they could. You rise to become a mirror, so that when others look into your story, they see their own courage staring back at them. The battlefield isn't out there, it's in your decisions. It's in what you do at 5 a.m. when no one is holding you accountable. It's in how you handle defeat when your name isn't trending. It's in how you speak to yourself when the noise is gone and the lights go out. That's where greatness is born, in the quiet, in the overlooked, in the moments that feel like nothing but secretly shape everything. So keep building, keep showing up, keep saying yes to your calling even when the world says you're not ready, because the world doesn't decide that you do. Edison didn't feel ready when he failed for the 10,000th time, but he kept testing, kept risking, kept pushing, until one day light broke through the darkness, and that's exactly what you're doing. Every time you act in the face of fear, you become the light. No more hiding, no more waiting for conditions to be perfect. You weren't put on this earth to react. You were born to create, to carve meaning into every breath, to stand like a force of nature in a world of excuses. So when the voice inside says, wait, you answer, watch me move. When your fear says, you're not ready, you whisper back, I was born for this. Because deep down in your spirit, in your bones, you know the truth. Success does not wait. It moves, it charges, it demands, and only bold answer the call. So be bold, be unrelenting, be the storm that refuses to break, because in a world full of hesitation, you are the proof that action wins. And when the dust settles, when the years pass, and history writes the names of those who changed everything, make damn sure yours is carved into stone, because you didn't wait, you didn't hesitate, you didn't ask for permission, you stepped forward before you felt ready.